Chris Smalling there, and quite rightly answering questions about Paul Pogba. We spoke before the game how, he was very much focus of the attention from Pep Guardiola 24 hours ago.
Yeah.
And he came out with what was an incredible second-half performance.
Well, again, he was one of the people... He's always going to have criticism. He's always going to be under scrutiny. And especially with him and Mourinho's relationship. But I thought second half, you have to say, just got himself more forward. He played the game simply, kept the ball moving along, and in the end, he got himself in a position to nick those 2 goals and get himself going. But it wasn't a vintage Pogba performance, but the 2 goals will help him. Absolutely.
We'll look at Pogba's goals a little bit later, but as for the goal that ultimately decided this contest, he finished this like a seasoned striker, did Chris Smalling, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm really pleased for him. Obviously, he was at fault for Kompany's goal, but he did this in the last away game against Crystal Palace. So, yeah, maybe slightly offside, but yeah, he's got a lot. I mean, right, he'll know a lot better than me, but as a striker. But when you have time to think like that, it's much more difficult than just doing it instinctively.
Yeah,
so it's a very good finish.
Especially with the ball coming in on that kind of angle as well. It's very easy to get it wrong, but he finished it well. But again, really, Otamendi, people like Otamendi, you saw how easy Chris Smalling got by him there. He's the kind of person that you've got to target in the City defence and try and put him under pressure. He's the same for the first goal, same for there again. He just easily brushed past, and he's somebody that is, for me, I think is a massive weak link for City, but don't get to exploit it enough, teams.
Let's get a different perspective from pitch side at the Etihad Stadium. Andy Townsend, Shay Given. Both, I suppose, were fortunate enough to witness it firsthand, although no doubt Shay will be a little bit disappointed by the eventual outcome. How do you go about making heads or tails of what we've just seen?
It's hard to work out. We said at half-time, Manish, that the Man United players looked deflated. They looked like they didn't know where they were. They were a bit lost, actually, coming off at half-time. And you've got to give Mourinho credit. I don't know what he said at half-time, but they came out a different team. And the 2 goals at the start of the second half were massive. And you could feel the whole atmosphere changing here. Me and Andy were sitting on the sideline saying, now's the time for Pep to bring De Bruyne or an Aguero one, and he didn't.
Yep.
And, of course, Smalling went in front as well.
I think what was interesting for me, I was watching Pep Guardiola's reaction to those incredible chances that Raheem Sterling had to maybe send City in, 4-0 up at half-time. Could have been. His reaction to them, he was furious at the way that Sterling squandered those chances. And I just had that gut feeling as we spoke at half-time that if United got one, Shay, would we see the effects of what happened the other night a little bit more against Liverpool? Would City start to just wilt a little bit? Did you think that's what happened or not?
As well, obviously they conceded 6 goals in 2 games. I mean, what I will say, for me, from my angle and looking at the replay, it was a stonewall penalty as well.
Should
have been a penalty on Aguero, and it could have even been a yellow card or even worse. I don't think the ref could see it. He was sort of looking to try and see it, but the linesman was on that side. And then, from a goalkeeping point of view, you've got to give David De Gea some great credit for a fantastic save as well. They done the second half.
My gut reaction was that it was a penalty. I didn't see the ball deviate enough. Ashley Young went flying in. He's got his foot up. Now, if Ashley Young makes significant contact with this ball, you would see the ball travel towards the corner flag. It doesn't.
You can see Martin Atkins well. He's kind of looking around bodies. But the linesman's got a great view of it. It's the linesman's on that side, and for me, it's not even it's a no-brainer. It's a stonewall penalty.
I thought that was an easy call. I really did. I think when referees there are taught to look at the movement of the ball, the path of the ball, and I thought that was a pretty straightforward one, Manish. Did you not think that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got to say, Ian here is absolutely convinced. I mean, not only is it a penalty, but it is a red card.
That's a red card.
Yeah.
And the ball, like you say with the ball, I thought he was totally out of control of his body there, Ashley Young.
Yeah.
And when you look at the connection with Aguero's right leg, he's just so fortunate that he's not got that planted, because I think that goes there. It's a terrible challenge.
It is. If you look at the referees, a lot of bodies in the way, but the linesman's right there, ready. He should see that and help his referee out.
In fact, from that first angle, you can see Martin Atkinson very clearly and very quickly just waving no penalty. And
he didn't look like, from our position where we were watching, Manish, he didn't look like he was in the greatest position, the referee, to absolutely make that call. You're right, he did actually do that, as if to say no penalty very quickly, but I didn't think he was in the greatest position to absolutely do that.
Yeah, and I say David De Gea, you've got to give him great credit as well. We talked about him for a few seasons now, and that save from the header was spectacular.
Yeah, it was a special save. I mean, this guy, Shay, has made so many of those from point-blank range, one-handed. He seems to have the ability to get the biggest hand on it all times.
We were kind of right behind it in the angle, and we thought it was in, and he's just... slow motion saying Danny do nothing for a goalkeeper, but that's a fantastic save. It's going away from him, and how he gets it up and over the bar from such a close range as well. That's one of the saves of the season.
Ryan,
Brilliant.
I've got to ask you, I mean, he just keeps doing it, doesn't he? David De Gea.
That's an extraordinary save.
Unbelievable.
The angle, I mean, Shea will know better than anyone, but that angle and to get the power over the crossbar, it has to be something special to beat David De Gea.
And then Shea, he's gone with the other arm there, Shea.
The thing is, right, if he goes with his left hand, he won't keep it out. The ball, the header is actually going away from it. It's high up, and he's got to go with the right hand. If he goes with the other hand, and the thing as well, right, he's only got a split second to make that decision. It happens so quick. The slow motion, it's
unbelievable.
A save.
It's super.
And as Giggsy said, getting a strong hand to get it up and over the bar as well.
And that wasn't it, Manish. There were still chances. Again, there was that scramble where it hit Raheem Sterling and just bounced off him and hit the post. The goalkeeper knew nothing about this one.
Yeah,
He's incredible.
He's actually that is going in the goal, Raheem Sterling. That is actually going in the goal.
Well, Raheem had one of them days, didn't he? He had 2 or 3 amazing chances first half, and here again, he got an equaliser, but just so close.
It's interesting. Raheem Sterling has scored 16 goals this season, which has been an incredible transformation, really, for him. And we can see, what confidence he's taken to the international stage as well. But when he had those chances in the first half, they weren't instinctive finishes, were they? He almost had too much time to think about them.
Yeah, we said that, actually. We thought Raheem nearly finishes when he's got no time to think about it. They were really good chances. They weren't half chances. He's clean through and goal. He's got to hit the target. Ask the question of David De Gea, and he's just leaning back there as he goes to hit it.
Yeah, that was a fantastic opportunity. And again, this one here. And again, he's not got the best feet when it comes to finishing neat and crisp and getting those shots away with real snap on them. He's improved significantly this year, but in that moment he looked a little bit like the Raheem Sterling we've seen from previous seasons when he gets those opportunities and doesn't quite take them.
Ian, it's quite telling, isn't it, for a player that scored 16 goals, but you're never quite convinced that he'll finish those chances off winning those situations.
No, I think that what you have to know, the last few steps you have before you're going on to finish, especially when you've got a defender coming or the goalie, you've got to get those quick steps in so you sort your feet out quicker. When you watched him, he never sorted himself. He was still coming across towards the left with the first chance, so his body's not even in the right position. And then the second one, he's actually leaning away. Doesn't sort himself out, doesn't get his feet sorted so he can pick a side, and then it goes over the bar. Anytime I see one that goes over the bar, I'm always thinking that he's got to be leaning back and he hasn't got his feet sorted. It's all about technique.
Interesting how Pep Guardiola will react to that. Shea, what do you think? Will it be an arm round the shoulder of Raheem Sterling?
Probably. I mean, it's how Pep's going to react actually to the next game, because we said they've conceded 6 goals, lost 2 games in a row. Probably hasn't happened all season, I wouldn't have thought. And the confidence you can see the lads, the City lads coming off at the end, they're probably scratching their head a little bit. How have they lost that game? But they've got such a massive game here on Tuesday night against Liverpool in the second leg, and how does he pick these guys up off the floor now?
Yeah, well, that's Sterling, who had a bit of trouble in front of goal, it has to be said. Not really the case for Paul Pogba, who, despite disappointing the first 45, certainly put in a telling contribution in the second half. 2 goals in a matter of, 98 seconds. This was an unbelievable turnaround from him.
Yeah, it was. Look, I felt a bit sorry for him first off. I saw Pogba, Sanchez, Lingard. All they were doing first 45 minutes was tracking back towards their own goal. Look, Paul Pogba has got to be given a bit of a licence to be able to express himself. He has to. If Jose's going to tie him down so much, so significantly, you are not going to see anything from him. Second half, we saw a completely different Pogba when all of a sudden he's got the licence, Shea, to get in the box and to make the difference.
It's like Mourinho said to him at half-time. He just took the shackles off him and just says, go and play. We've seen this at Juventus, obviously getting into forward positions and scoring goals. And he was... This is the Paul Pogba we've seen of France, of course, in Juventus, and we haven't seen enough of this at Man United, but...
Great combination
he's changed
play,
the game around, himself with the 2 great goals.
Yeah, lovely chest that from Ander Herrera. Good run from Pogba. Not an easy finish, but makes sure that he takes care with that. And from that moment, United very much back in the game. I think significantly, almost straight away, you could see a very different United as soon as they're back in it.
I tell you what, when you look at that, one of the things, again, I'm digging him out a bit, Otamendi, he makes some really poor decisions. He's got himself in a position there with Sanchez where Sanchez hadn't had to do too much to beat him. He's got to hold him up. He's going away from goal. Then the ball goes inside. He doesn't make any effort to get back in there. And he is someone, for me, Otamendi, that you've got to try and isolate him and get him under pressure.
Righty, he commits to everything full-blooded, Otamendi. He dives into challenges, and you're absolutely right. When maybe if he just gave himself half a yard to just think about things, just delay people, but he doesn't. He always feels like he's got to go and affect the ball and make a challenge. And you're right, Sanchez spun him too easily.
So after Pogba's first goal in 4 months, he got his second 98 seconds later, which was quite an incredible turnaround, really.
Well, it's funny because before half-time, we didn't have enough time, Manish, because I wanted to say, get Sanchez off and get Rashford on. And as soon as I said it, he's had a hand in all 3 goals. But again, he does that. You know he's going to come inside on his right foot when he does that. Pogba's made another great ball. Made another great run in there. And the thing with this, it's a little bit behind Pogba. He's really done well to direct this on target, but he's done very well. But the ball in is fantastic. Brilliant goal.
Great finish, Andy, from him.
Brilliant stuff. And I'm delighted for him because, you know, he's had a tough period lately. He's had a particularly tough last 24 hours. I mean, what's been going on between agent and clubs, etc., etc. That's not easy to handle. And after his first 45 minutes, like everybody in a red shirt, very disappointed. All credit to him. That shows a proper player who can pick himself up and make the difference when his team really need to.
Well, it's been fascinating getting your perspective from pitch side. Andy Schaefer now, we'll be hearing from you a little bit later in the programme, but for now, thanks very much indeed. Just want to explore one thing that you mentioned and what the gents there talked about. In some respects, the handbrake was on in the first half. Why then did they play the second half? Was it something that the players took upon themselves to play that way, or was that the instruction from the manager?
Well, you see the first goal, intent. They kept the ball, but then they had 7 players in and around the box. Herrera, a midfielder, who got nowhere near the City box in the first half, is chesting it down for Pogba. Third man running. It's intent. It's getting players in the box. Sanchez out on the right. Lukaku in the box. They've got players in goal-scoring positions. First half, we didn't see that. We didn't see him on the front foot. Like Andy said, all the players were running back towards their own goal rather than towards the City goal. So as soon as that intent changed and you're on that front foot, you feel it as a footballer. Give me the ball. You see Pogba, in both goals, he's involved in the build-up. And that's what his game should be about. Involved in the build-up, get it wide, then get in the box. He's a player who should be scoring 15 to 20 goals a season with the ability that he's got.
Interesting to know what the half-time team talk was like in the United dressing room. In fact, we can hear from the United boss, Jose Mourinho, now.
Today, thank you.
Interesting perspective from Jose Mourinho, not on only Paul Pogba, but the fact that they're just 6 points away now from claiming a top 4 place, and for him, that's his end game ultimately. But interesting there, and he was pursued on that questioning in terms of being irked by this perception that United aren't playing particularly well. But they did seem, and we've already talked about this and touched upon it, Ryan, just moments ago, that they did play as if the handbrake was on in that first half. Is that down to Jose Mourinho or not?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he's the manager who sets them up, but ultimately, when the players go on the pitch, like I said at half-time, a Manchester United player needs to be able to pass to another Manchester United player. You do possession every day in training. That's the basics. But players running with the ball, players not showing angles, weight of pass not being good enough, that's not good enough for Manchester United. Second half, it was. And you see the difference that it gives you, it builds your confidence as the game goes on. And doing the simple things, just getting the basics right. And then gradually, the ability of the individuals will shine through.
Almost reflected from what we saw against Swansea last weekend, where United were thoroughly dominant against, albeit a struggling Swansea side at Old Trafford. But second half, it looked like they were very keen to close, close shop from then on in. And that's the thing that I suppose irks United fans, is that it stops them from seeing opponents through with another 2 or 3 goals.
Well, I don't think anybody thinks that Mourinho's a bad manager. I think his record and that shows that. And everybody knows that Man United are a really, really good football team, very good football team.
Does he shackle them?
I believe he does. He's saying that he wanted his defenders to play out, but then, Chris Smalling and Bailly to play out. Even if you're getting Pogba coming in, Herrera, and he's saying he wanted his wingers to come in and help the midfielders. I didn't see any of that. So as they can continue to try and pass it in there, pass it to him. If you can't get the space, at least you're moving Manchester City about. I didn't see any of that in the first half. The second half, yes, they built more confidence. They moved themselves 10, 15 yards further up the pitch. And then the quality of Sanchez, the quality of Pogba, and that, then it started to tell. But I think that him saying that people say don't think he's a good manager, don't think his team's good, I know for a fact that Man United could play 40% better than they're doing, and I think that they should be a lot closer to Manchester City with the players they've got right now.
I think this season, the games, Liverpool away, Anfield, where Liverpool were there for the taking, didn't play well. City at home, that I think it was 7 points between the two teams at that time. If you win that game, it could be a completely different season. So in the big games, you know, we've seen the goals away from home in the big games. Not good enough. Obviously, today, it showed everyone against the best team by a million miles this season that United have got the players to do that.
And do you agree with Wrighty, what he just said there, Ryan, that United players have 40% more to give?
Well, they have to. They have to. Next year, they have to do that because otherwise City will win the league again. Yeah. Because of the quality that they've got, the transfer window, they're going to improve, they're going to get better players. So Manchester United, every season, whoever wins the Premier League, the teams beneath them have to improve. Yeah. So Manchester United have to next year.
Despite all that, the 3 points went to Manchester United. But conversely, of course, huge disappointment for Manchester City, for whom the title celebrations are on hold. Consecutive defeats now in all competitions and their first home league defeat since December 2016. We'll be talking more City when we return. To put it in context, in the wake of the Wigan defeat in the FA Cup, Liverpool in the Champions League, and now this, they suddenly look a lot more fallible than they did before.
They do, and those teams you didn't mention Bristol as well. All those teams really had to go and put Manchester City's back defenders under pressure. I said earlier on that I don't think he made too many mistakes with the selection. But when you look at the chances that Sterling missed, you have to look and say, would Jesus take those? Would Aguero take those? If they were playing, you'd have to say they probably would. And then they go in 4-0, something like that. So you have to say that was a bit of a mistake for me. And the reason why you have to say it's a mistake now, because the gamble on Sterling being up there to be in the position to get those chances and not take them didn't work.
And Ryan, a lot of people talk about, I suppose, the mental cost of a defeat like that today against Manchester United and the momentum. But physically, what has that taken out of Manchester City ahead of Tuesday night against Liverpool?
Physically, OK. I think it's emotionally tiring. You know, when you concede 6 goals against your 2 biggest rivals, and to get yourself back up again, City have to play the perfect game in midweek now to go through to the Champions League semi-final. But knowing at the back of their mind, they've conceded goals.
So there's that element of doubt now?
Yeah, there's that element of doubt, right from the goalkeeper to the defenders. So they have to play the perfect game and no mistakes whatsoever. And to do that, you need the concentration and you need to be at your best, not for 89 minutes, but for 95 minutes. And that is very difficult to do against good sides. OK, let's get reaction then from the Manchester City captain. Here is Vincent Kompany. He looks pretty deflated, and understandably so.
Yeah.
Ian, what did you make of that?
Well, it's, like I say, it comes down to the chances. You can see that that's what they're all saying in the dressing room. That game should have been finished in the first half. But, you know, he's a perfect guy to be in that room, in that dressing room now, because you can see that he's, you know, he speaks sense. You know, he's going to be very sensible and he's going to get them going again because they're going to need to do it pretty quickly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and he's been there before. You know, he's got that experience. And from a City perspective, go home, have your ice bath, shut the curtains, don't watch the TV, no social media until Tuesday night, and you just concentrate on Tuesday night because, like I say, emotionally, this sort of game takes so much out of you. And to get back up, it'll take the perfect match to go through. So in the end, it wasn't the dream scenario that Manchester City fans had hoped for and claimed the win that would have been at the expense of their local rivals, for whom Paul Pogba played a pivotal part. And we'll be hearing from him after the break.
Thank you, boss.
From those two to these two pitchside, Andy Townsend and Shay Given once more. We heard from Paul Pogba. Was that his best 45 minutes in a United shirt, that second half?
He played very well against Everton, didn't he, at Goodison, I think. When was it? Just early in the new year, I thought he was very impressive in a game like that. But do you know what's interesting there is when I listening to the questions that Thierry was putting to him, Shay, and watching him myself, is that when he says you can't make those runs in a 2 because you have to have control. Yeah, he does have to have control as a midfield player, but it's only when they were 2-0 down that we saw the real Paul Pogba, that we saw the Paul Pogba that we know how capable he can be.
Yeah.
At the start of the game, it's all about that control, worrying about City, making sure that they stop them, that they nullify them. And I think that's what Mourinho does to players.
Yeah, well, first half today, the Paul Pogba you wouldn't have bought. You wouldn't have looked at him for 90 million. You would have thought,
no,
I'm not having him. He positionally was all over the place. Didn't have any influence in the game whatsoever. And then obviously we've seen just by the goals, as he even said himself, the shackles were taken off. They felt they had nothing to lose. 2-0 down away to their arch rivals, stopped them winning the Premier League. And that's what he does. And players like Sanchez, as he says, Sanchez is a class player. We've seen him at Arsenal, how good a player Sanchez is. He'll find you if you make them runs. We spoke off air about Paul Scholes, you know, running into the box, late runs into the box. And the size of Pogba, 6'4", the likes of Otamendi can't deal with that, and Sanchez will find him.
Well, it was interesting because Mourinho, of course, gave Pogba some support, having two next to him, the likes of Ander Herrera and Nemanja Matic. In that first half, Herrera was tasked to look after David Silva, Ryan, and that clearly didn't work, did it?
No, it didn't. David Silva run the first half, but it's interesting. I'm totally with Andy there. He was a midfielder. I was a midfielder towards the end of my career. Doesn't matter if you're in a 3 or a 2. You should be getting in the box.
Yeah.
And you should be saying to your teammate, listen, I'm going in the box, you fill in for me.
Yeah.
That's what a team is. He's a goal scorer.
Yeah.
He needs to be in the box. Not every time United attack, but he needs to be in the box 5 or 6 times in a game, and he will score.
So is that down to him, or is that down to the formation that he's given?
I think it's got to be that. It's the formation and obviously the manager. If Paul Pogba was saying that when there's only a 2, I have to be more controlled. If you've got Paul Pogba in your team and he is not free to go and affect the game going forward, it is pointless having him in the team. He has to be what we've just seen there today, in advance of the midfield, going to help.
Yeah.
You know, to support, because that's what he's got the ability to do.
And just to take a step back from the emotions of what was an incredible derby, can we just, gentlemen at the Etihad, just appreciate what was, at the end, a terrific game of Premier League football?
Well, you know, Manish has shown all around the world, and we said at half-time 2-0. We didn't want before the game a 0-0 dull draw because so many millions watched it around the world. I mean, just going back to my City point of view, I was just disappointed that he didn't go full strength today. We said before the game we were surprised a little bit with De Bruyne missing and not starting with a striker, and I felt that had to get the job done maybe 60-70 minutes, then he could rest De Bruyne, take them off. Yeah. So just a bit disappointed from that point, but great effort for the Premier League, of course. OK, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much indeed for your company throughout the afternoon on Matchday Live. Andy Townsend and Shay Given. Incredible. What can we say? 9 hours of Premier League action. We'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed to Ian Wright, to Ryan Giggs. It's been a cast of thousands on today's edition of the programme. 8 fixtures, no home win, but we were given an absolute stonker of a game at the Etihad Stadium.